Okay, today's agenda is to discuss the pros and cons and maybe some ins and outs, some tips for growing your own inputs, specifically mulch, like this wall of mulch you see here. So what you see here, this big pile of refuse.
All I see is a bunch of organic waste.
Going all the way around here is inputs that I have not been able to process. So what brings this video up for me is I need to determine whether or not I need to make a purchase of some heavier equipment, like particularly a mulcher. What I've been doing up to this point, and you see there's another pile right there, is hauling all this stuff to my county brush dump and picking up wood chips in exchange. And in that way, I've not had to shell out the expense of a wood chipper. And in addition to using all this material to exchange it for wood chips at the county brush dump, I also use this material to make my garden beds, basically using the logs around the garden beds to help hold in soil and keep it from eroding, because I do live on the side of a hill. Although what's happened is the county brush dump has decided that they're not going to do this anymore. So that has created a problem for me. Yeah, so back to the discussion about whether or not I should buy a wood chipper. Well, like in my situation, if I want to continue to have wood chips, and the growing operation here just is critically dependent upon wood chips, then I'm going to have no choice but to purchase that equipment. So a little bit of backstory on my little farm here. I decided to take the approach that I needed to grow and supply all of my own inputs, compost, mulch, you name it. So let me take you through and show you where I get this material here. Okay, so what you see here is a nice big stand of multiple types of fruit trees, and this is the first place that I get my inputs, my mulch, is just from trimming the fruit trees. If you have fruit trees, you know you have to trim them just about every year, and you're going to get material from that. The other place I get material is from mowing, and mowing when you have a permaculture garden or farm is a little bit different. That would include mowing this beast down. So every fall I get inputs from all these sunflowers and fuzzy bean, which are edible by the way, and also just from mowing the paths of grass. Yes, you will get weed seeds from using regular grass as mulch, but if you just keep mulching, you'll keep suppressing, so don't worry about it. All right, here's the next place we're coming up to. Okay, here we go. Take a look at the difference in the canopy here. This right here versus that right there. So all of the native trees that I don't want to grow have been trimmed down to give a competitive advantage to the trees I do want to grow, like this Mexican plum right here. So all of these every year have to be trimmed the way you would trim hedges. And here's another hedge. You might not be able to see it so well, but that right there is elbow bush. So there is a heck of a lot of hedge trimming going on, probably about a 1/4 acre of hedges, which there really are trees and hedges or not hedges, trees and shrubs that I basically keep trimmed down to allow light in.
The art of bush manipulation.
This is one of the places. Now I do have a native area, like a zone 5 type space that I could harvest from, but I up to now have not had to. You can see I got quite a bit of it if I ever decided to go after it. Now I'll take you to this other space here. You can see all of this right here is all garden bed, and it comes around like this. All of this gets taken out. Also, this is the back side of the area I showed you before. So all of these living trellis trees get trimmed. This elbow bush gets trimmed. A lot of hedge trimming, basically. And then you see this oak tree here in the back. That gets trimmed to allow light in this way. So a lot of trees and shrubs, basically, and whatever grass clippings I can capture. And that 100% would provide all the mulch that I need for my little operation here. And it would probably work for you too. The pros and cons, let's discuss that a little bit. Pros and cons. Pros, well, you don't have to pay anybody for mulch. That's huge. Okay. But more importantly for me is you're not dependent on an outside supplier for you to continue to do business. And to me, that's the most critical, important part. The downside, however, is that you now have to dedicate a certain amount of your space to growing something that does not feed you and isn't going to make you very much money. So as far as the con, you're going to use half your land for it. So you could potentially be eating into your profits. The upside being that your business gets more resilient to supplier disruption. So the ins and outs of growing it, well, the way I've done it here is that growing the inputs doesn't really interfere with me growing food, other than the aforementioned usage of half my land to do so. It provides home to wildlife and pollinators and all manner of insects and other animals that are extremely useful to me. So ins and outs, well, I wish I could provide some information to say, oh, this is difficult, watch out for that. But where I'm living in the cross timbers, if you stick with native shrubs, native trees, as I have, then for the most part, there aren't really any ins and outs. It's just going to be pretty easy that they're going to grow and do their own thing. When it comes to the grass that I mentioned using, most people don't have to do anything to get grass to grow. They just got to mow it. So, but it does take up many hours per week of harvesting that you're not harvesting food. And then of course, spreading the mulch and everything that, the harvesting part, however, you generally wouldn't be spending if you were, buying your inputs. Let's see if I can think of any other pros and cons or ins and outs of growing inputs. You see this female tree? See that right there? See how I've trimmed that limb? And if you look, there's a few others trimmed. One of the problems of doing mulch the way I do, here's another tree here. I've made a video on trimming this guy down. I'm about to do another one. But I got a huge amount of material from that. One of the downsides, or one of the ins and outs, is that you've got to be skilled enough to actually know how to trim trees and get up a ladder and do this shrub management that I'm doing. And I don't like spending money to haul in inputs. To me, it kind of defeats the purpose growing your own food if it costs you more to grow your own food than it does to buy organic food in the store. It is turning into a forest, isn't it?